What is up, Monochrome Podcast peeps?
Ooh,
it is JT.
hello.
We're here back with episode 15. Super excited to have you guys back. We are almost done with the season, but not quite done. So stick around. We got a few more episodes left, but super excited. Today we're going to be doing a little staff meeting with Caitlin. We have a really cool interview with Phil Bowdle, who's a great friend of Salt, and super excited about that interview. And then we're going to be letting you guys know about something that can save you a little bit of money on Salt Conference. So you're going to want to hear about that. Keith is going to bring us a pastoral moment, and then Caitlin is going to send us off with our creative challenge. So, but before we get into things, I have a very important would you rather question for Caitlin and Keith. Would you rather talk like Yoda or breathe like Darth Vader all the time? So these are like either or, and it's constant.
All right, I'll go first. I got to say, I knew immediately which one of these I wanted. I feel like it's an easy choice from my own experience. I would rather talk like Yoda than breathe like Darth Vader, because loud breathing, I think, grosses people out.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that. It doesn't seem healthy when you breathe like that. Yes.
Yeah.
And I just wouldn't want
There's some
everybody to
weird
hear
ASMR.
me breathing constantly. You got to breathe at all times. You can choose when you want to talk. And let's be honest, there's some funny sounding people that are really famous and nobody cares. Patrick Mahomes is famous for sounding like Kermit the Frog. And everybody loves him. He's Super Bowl champion. Who cares? So I think you want to speak like Yoda.
Yeah, talk like Yoda, I would rather. But
Oh, very
there's
good.
like some presence. There's some awesome presence about being able to breathe like Darth Vader that I think some people would choose that to have that epic presence whenever they enter a room. But yeah, I'd rather talk like Yoda because I feel like I speak backwards anyway.
I think Yoda, and here's my rationale. I think breathing like Darth Vader is completely excusable if you have his like deep, like coming
James Earl
through a
Jones
speaker,
voice.
you know, like voice. Because it's like, and then he's like, Luke. And it's like that voice is like, all right, I can ignore the weird breathing noises. But if you're just like, hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. Then it's like, okay. Yeah, no, that's annoying. So Yoda sounds wise because he's remaking grammar and it feels wise. So.
Even Grammarly doesn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, they're breaking the AI. All right. Good answers. We're curious. If you guys want to answer this, shoot us an email. It's down in the show notes. But if you want to engage at all, shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. So coming up next, we have staff meeting with Caitlin. Caitlin, what is your staff meeting moment?
Yeah, well, number one, it's been a while, I feel like, since we've had a staff meeting moment. So welcome back to learning how to be better as a team. I want to start with this one is maybe, don't think that this is one is just for leaders. This is for backseat leaders as well, which I think is a real thing.
Backseat drivers.
Also another good podcast, Backseat Leaders. But I want to talk about Maslow's hierarchy for leaders. And it's basically like a food pyramid for your team and the needs of your team. So I want you to picture the food pyramid, or at least the crappy one we were taught in the 90s, you know. But you have like your base where it's the breads or whatever, and it goes up to desserts, which is at the top. But starting from the base going up, basically the pyramid for leaders, for your team's needs, it starts with the physiological needs. You know, do you have a livable wage? Do you have work-life balance? Are you safe in the workplace? Number 2, safety needs in terms of job security, insurance benefits. Number 3, belonging. Does your team have good team building, good culture? Is there inclusivity and open communication? And then second to the top is esteem. I can't say it now. I feel like I said it funny. Esteem.
Esteem, yeah.
Sounded like
recognition. Yes. Does your team feel like they have recognition? Is there career advancement and skill development for them? And then the final top pyramid tier is self-actualization. Having vision and meaningful goals set for the team. Is there personal development opportunities, not just career ones, but personal ones? And is there creative freedom? And I think, man, if you guys have watched our webinar with Brad Zimmerman on the AI series, I just want to throw out, he told a great story, very brief example. His church is a try anything church. Like he said, our church promotes creativity, innovation in the workplace. We want you to try things even if they fail. Specifically, he was like, if the batteries die, no one's getting fired because the batteries died on pastor's mic during the sermon on Sunday. No one's getting yelled at. And I know some of you listening to this, unfortunately, are probably like, oh, I wish that were my church. Like, I just got reamed out by someone on our team, or maybe even an attendee member because the batteries died on a mic. But that, I think, tells me that Brad Zimmerman's church has reached the top of that, Maslow hierarchy pyramid. They have that creative freedom to try things and fail and it be okay and learn to do better. But I guess the staff meeting moment is really, I would love for you guys to look at that pyramid. We're going to have a link to the image about it in our show notes. Look at that pyramid and this is scary. Be very vulnerable. Ask your team where they feel like they're at, or ask them individually, what level of the pyramid are we at? And it tells you as a leader, even if you're a backseat leader, maybe not a titled leader in your organization, but it helps you know where you're at so that you can keep growing your team better. Now, I'm not going to put you guys on the spot. Don't worry. I know I've done that in other staff meeting moments.
Thanks.
I will not put you on the spot and be like, where do you fall on this pyramid? But like, are there any that you can speak to that, I've been to jobs that got this high, or I've been to jobs that went all the way, or I feel like most jobs have been, at this level. I feel like for me, most jobs I've had before coming to SALT, they're stuck at like belonging, like that middle pyramid level. And it was hard to get past, the team building and the open communication. I never got much past that.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I've worked in places kind of in a lot of areas, either in worship or creatively. And there's definitely like, even as a volunteer, I would encourage you honestly too. Maybe you're like, I don't have a staff that I oversee with this, but this could be adapted for volunteers as well. Like, hey, do they have this buy-in as well? Because that's where I've experienced a lot of this too, is like as a volunteer, do I feel like I'm a part of the team and I have input and like I belong and all of those things? Do I have goals and growth and things that's happening? And there's been a lot of situations where the answer is no, or I've been in a job where there's not been creative freedom, and that can get very frustrating, especially if you are creative. Rules are good and guidance is good, but getting to a point to where your leadership trusts you to be like, hey, take this a direction that you want to take it. And we'll kind of, guide you along the way and say, that's a little out of bounds, but at least letting you kind of have that ownership of it. That can really be powerful for a team member. So I'd say I've been in a couple different situations that are in different areas of this. And sometimes it takes time, to get to those different spaces. And so it's a good thing to keep in mind. This would be great for one-on-ones, like too, while you're talking, Caitlin, I'm thinking about that. So,
and hopefully your team does one-on-ones.
Yeah. Do one-on-ones if you don't do those.
I'm sitting here and I'm watching this, and I think there's some irony here of our audience are people that work in the church, and I think on the very first level, physiological needs.
Yeah, that's very
Ensure
true.
a livable wage.
Church,
Ooh.
yeah.
Although if you
allow
work in the
time
church,
off.
Don't you choose that sacrifice?
Exactly.
Livable
No,
wage
see,
doesn't
that's
always come with the job.
Well,
That's
we're
not how
opening
it
a
should
can
be,
of worms
but
now.
that's
no.
true. It's how it sometimes is.
We need another podcast episode. Episode 18.
Physically safe, check. Comfortable workspace, maybe it differs, which I don't think is all that important. But anyway, what I was going to say is that, I think that a lot of times what you do is some of these are trade-offs because we're all, projects of God's grace. And so we have our weak spots and we all have areas that we can improve. And I'm sure employers feel a huge burden to, fulfill as much of this as they possibly can, unless they're, a terrible boss. But why would you want to stay there long if they were? But for people that really genuinely understand the weight of responsibility for supplying people the gift, and it is a gift of work, of being able to use their gifts and be a part of a team. I find that I've been in jobs, and I have been in a lot of jobs. I can't even go into it here. We don't have enough time. But you sometimes get one or two for trading off the other. And what I found is as long as I usually can feel like I belong, usually that's a job that I want to give everything I've got for it. If I feel like I'm lacking in that, I mean, like I'm not going to say this to Luke because I want to continue to make what I make.
Well,
but
careful, because
like,
he does listen to these.
well, then
The
we'll just
boss
cut this
listens to
part
the
out, right?
podcast.
We'll just cut this part out, and but the whole, even my pay is very important, but like the sense of belonging it reaches deeper into my soul. And so I've cleaned kitchen hoods. If I felt like I belonged in that job, I would still be doing it. But I'm not. So that tells you that.
Well, and I want to add a disclaimer on Keith's behalf. Keith is not fresh out of college. So when he says he has a lot of jobs, it's not like he's been fired from a ton of jobs in the last 2 years because he's fresh out of college.
Yeah, I just
you
skip
can't
around.
see, but
Yeah. I when I'm thinking about this too, I think a lot of times it can be like, if you're a leader, this can be kind of a scary thing to ask people. But I would say, like, for someone like me, like, this can be super helpful because sometimes I find I'm frustrated about something and I don't have the highest, most emotional intelligence in the world. And so I can be mad about something, but I don't understand what it is about it that I'm frustrated, or what it is that's not necessarily meeting my needs. And it can take me a while to get there. And sometimes I never do. And then I'm just mad about it for no reason. But this can be a great tool to kind of pinpoint, like, hey, what is it that's like really grinding my gears? Is it this? No, it's not that. Like, I'm getting paid well. Is it this? No, I feel like I belong. Like, I don't know. Maybe I don't have creative freedom. So it can kind of help you pinpoint that. And if you're a leader, it can help you help your people to pinpoint maybe what it is that's frustrating them. And that can really give you a clear roadmap to, like, hey, these are the things we need to do better and to make our people feel valued. So that's a great exercise.
Yeah, JT, kind of what you said earlier too. Do it regularly in one-on-ones, and then we are human, we are fickle. You know where a standard is, because sometimes we have a bad week where we didn't feel like we had belonging. We didn't feel like we were being invested in career-wise as much as someone else. And so that spot in the pyramid may change week to week. But if you do it regularly, you will see, where does our team generally feel over a few months, and have a good pulse there. Yep.
Is there a path that's paved to the top is the question. And that's you got to have the doors have got to be open. You may not always be in self-actualization, but does your company allow you to achieve that?
L-Acoustics, a leader in audio technology, offers cutting-edge sound solutions for houses of worship. Their Elisa immersive hyper-real sound transports congregations beyond the ordinary with an immersive soundscape, putting everyone inside the message. From cozy to grand-scale sanctuaries, L-Acoustics tailors sound designs to meet your specific congregation or worship space, ensuring quality meets affordability. With L-Acoustics, you'll never have to sacrifice sound quality. Learn more by clicking the link in the show notes. Okay, we are going to hop into our interview with Phil Bowdle. This guy is a leadership guru. We love having him at conference. Him and Luke have a really awesome conversation. So it fits in actually really well with what we were just talking about in staff meeting. So that's exciting.
All right, we are here live in the SALT studio. I have my friend Phil Bowdle here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Luke. This is blessed.
This is fun because you're here. You're in person. This isn't over Zoom or anything like that.
It was so nice to talk to you, not on Zoom, and be in Nashville in person.
I love it. I'm glad that the schedule worked out. So I want you to just share a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in ministry, what you're working on, and then give us a little bit of a snapshot of family life right now.
Yeah, I've never really been able to escape ministry. Started as a pastor's kid and then tried to escape, and I've been in full-time ministry. Was in full-time ministry for about 16 years, and still serve with ministries. It still feels that way. but just serving with ministries all over the country, day in, day out, and what I get to do. So yeah. And a dad of 2 amazing kids, of a 9-year-old boy, 5-year-old girl. It's a really fun season. It's a busy season, but we are soaking it up and taking 9 and 5-year-old problems over teenagers and all that's coming. So we're soaking up in the moment, enjoying it. Enjoy your stage of life as a dad as well too right now.
Yeah, 2 very
got
young ones.
Soak it up, no doubt.
Yeah, super, super exciting. Well, let's dive in. Right now, in the season you're in, you're working with teams. You get a chance to travel around and coach teams and sort of help them increase their efficiencies, help them increase their effectivenesses, and you're really helping them dream. Hey, what does kind of the next season look like? So I just want to talk about teams.
Let's do it.
I want to talk about church teams specifically. And so I'm just curious, when you work with a team, is there like sort of this secret recipe that you've sort of found in all the years and all the teams you've worked with that like, hey, these personalities need to be in play, or these mindsets need to be in play, or these sort of roles are really mission critical?
Yeah, definitely some commonalities. I don't think you could say there's a cure-all formula for every team. But one common thing is a great team is not a team that you look around and everybody thinks like you, acts like you, same age as you, like that. Conformity, it does not make it a remarkable team. It actually breaks from a team from thriving, because you have to have diversity of thought. You have to have multiple perspectives, and people coming at problems from different angles, different ways. So I think there's a personality aspect that, personality assessments and tools like that can really help you get a sense of, okay, what is this person like, and how do their strengths match with the strengths that we need? So I think there's that side of personalities, but I think there is a side of leadership as well, and leaders that can lead something bigger than themselves. That's the thread. When there's a great team has leaders that can not just lead themselves, but lead others. The teams that are struggling right now are the ones that are trying to find specialists that meet small needs that just usually can't keep up with the day-to-day needs of ministry. So leaders that can lead leaders, and leaders that, especially in the area of managing the day-to-day needs of a creative team mixed with the creative needs of a church. It's kind of a mix of those. So there's a lot of different ways you can a lot of pieces to the recipe, but ultimately you want to have a good balance of the right kind of personalities with the right kind of specialties and the right kind of leaders. And hopefully most often it's best when you can just hire every need that you have and there's an endless budget. I haven't met that church yet, that's like, hey, if we need it, let's just hire it. And that there's some danger to that as well too. So it takes building a team in a variety of ways too. It's not all staff, although that's often required. It can be leaders that can lead volunteers and contractors and freelancers and work with companies and services and consultants and coaches to find the right mix. So you're not going to find the cure-all, but it takes a little bit of everything to make it work.
I love that. And I can just imagine someone listening to this saying, but wait, Phil, like we get so much more done because we see the world from the same perspective. You're saying they're missing something.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to maybe go here, but does that mean that a team really isn't effective unless there's conflict in a meeting and conflict in maybe the best path forward?
Yep.
Talk about that. Why is conflict so good?
If everybody agrees with you, you end up in an echo chamber. You end up approaching the problem the same way. And sometimes it takes somebody saying, hey, help me understand. I missed this. Or, hey, that wasn't my experience. Or, hey, I know that video hit great for you, but with my background, like this is what triggered me. What do you think about this? And it takes an open-handed, lean-in posture from every diverse side of thought. But goodness, great magic happens when we're leaning in together. Even that, some of that's from personality, but it's also from age. Like if it's great when you got a team that you'd want to hang out with and do life with and all that, but I see a lot of teams that are loving life, great, thriving, creative team, all in their early 20s. And guess who's probably a little bit underrepresented? The average age of the 45 to 50-year-old at their church, and they're wondering, they don't get us. They don't understand us.
This pastor's changing too much.
All of that. So guess what? We can all learn from each other. And when we have that posture of, hey, I want to learn from you. I want to grow from you. You can help me and I can help you. That makes you a stronger team.
Yeah. So that's saying to me that it's super vital to not just grow up leaders from within the organization that have like attended church there the whole time, became an intern, right? Like you're saying, hey, there's very intentional people we need to get from the outside of the church, people who have grown up in the church, people who are maybe a steering committee on big level decisions that sort of really taps like the breadth of your community.
Yes. I mean, I think there is the benefit you get from rising people up within your own team and organization is culture.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest wild card.
They understand the DNA.
Yeah. Like when you bring somebody out, they may not, that your culture changes that day when that team member comes in, bringing their background, their context, their experience, sometimes for the better and sometimes not so much, you know? So you got to make the right call. Are we bringing somebody in from the outside to change culture because we need to, or are we enhancing the culture that we've got the right culture? We just need to bring in the right kind of mix of a person. So that helps you figure out, do I need an outside person or inside? But more often than not, like if you only hire from the inside, you can create that echo chamber unintentionally. And then you're stuck in a silo kind of wondering why are we stuck?
Yeah.
Or are we doing the same thing the same way that we've always done it?
So you talked earlier about you need leaders who can lead leaders, or leaders who can lead. And I just want to push into that a little bit. Maybe help us as you're sitting with an individual or you're sitting with a team. What are some like practical things you're like, hey, here's some skill sets I want you to work on to really actually become a leader of a leader?
Yeah. Well, I'm not trying to do a cop out, but the leaders of leaders lead themselves well. Nobody wants to follow you if you're not able to lead yourself.
And give me just tactical things. What does that look like? What does it look like to lead yourself?
Well, one, it starts with self-awareness. Like if you aren't self-aware of what it's like on the other side of you, you're never going to be able to lead a team and bring them somewhere they weren't going to go otherwise. Yeah. So I think it starts with self-awareness. It starts with discipline. It means, integrity of doing what you're saying you're going to do. There's a long line of people that can't, team members that are working in churches that get out because of a leader that can't lead themselves. Yeah. So I think there's a responsibility for us to lead ourselves well. And then when it comes to developing leaders around us, I mean, you don't just snap your fingers and it magically happens. It's discipline. It's leaders that invest in you and say, hey, I see this in you. You have an ability. You have the right heart to be able to do something even greater than what you're doing right now, and give them opportunities to win, opportunities to fail, opportunities to grow, and to be able to have a chance to solve problems in a different way that they had to do before. So I think that leadership happens in the leading. It doesn't happen just magically by snapping your fingers, like I said. So you got to have the chances to take reps and lead, but it doesn't happen without leading yourself.
So I'm going to ask you a question that I didn't prep you on. And I'm just sitting here.
It wouldn't be a conversation with you and I without something like that. So bring it.
What do you think the difference between leading and managing is?
That's a great question. My friend Matt Wright that I work with at Slingshot Group, he recently said, you can lead from the stage, but you can't manage from the stage. And they're two different disciplines that sometimes one or the other gets a bad rap when they really should be complementary, and both are needed. Yeah. It's not, the popular thing is, management's dead, leadership is the way. Well, yeah, there is some management that it takes to get from here to there.
Can you be a good leader and a bad manager?
Yeah.
Because I think it's pretty assumed you can be a bad leader and a good manager.
I work with a lot of those, but I think the good leaders know that they're bad managers, and good leadership is knowing what you are and what you aren't. It's self-awareness around that. And if good leaders can surround themselves with great managers, that's a dream team. Is
it dangerous to say that leaders are far more thinking about vision, where are we headed, raising up people, getting culture defined, sort of setting what I'd call the boundaries, and managers are saying, hey, here's the path in which we're going to get there, and we're going to make sure that there's accountability to get there?
I think you nailed it. I think that's the thread. Usually managers are great at helping, create the path for how to get from here to there, but leaders set the vision and the course for where you are, where we need to go on that. So it takes both.
You and I have talked a lot about this over the years, that post-COVID, post-pandemic, that really the creative teams have sort of been thrusted to the table
Uh-huh.
in a way that they never have. And
Yep,
I'm
no doubt.
sitting here thinking about the man or woman who's the leader of their team, or maybe leading their teams in different ways. And they have a pastor who is just not quite getting that they're under-resourced, understaffed. Yep. Walk me through, how do you advocate a team member to say, hey, here's how you need to ask healthily for more team members, or for a team, right? There may be an individual listening to this going, this is a great conversation, but I don't have a team, right?
Yeah.
How do you encourage that person to advocate for team?
Yeah, that happens all the time. I've learned a couple things to do and a couple things not to do. You know, the natural response when we're at that point where we're desperately like, we need somebody else, is usually when we're at our most overwhelmed, at our at the peak of emotion. And the wrong way to do it is to say, I'm really busy, I need to hire somebody. The reason I don't think that gets you where you actually want it to go is when you say that, you're talking to somebody else that is busy and overwhelmed and has probably more on your plate than you do.
And it's so, you just basically said, pause for a second and take perspective of them.
Yep. It is not, when you are asking to bring somebody to the team, it is not about you. It is about your mission. And when you can make it about that, you can be objective instead of subjective around like your own needs. So when you can say, hey, objectively, here's where we want to go as a church. Here's where we are now. Here's the gap of what we're feeling. Here's what I'm doing right now to try to make up that gap. And this is where it's leaving us. Can we work together towards maybe exploring what are some solutions for this? And I'm open to exploring all different options. You are better off in those conversations getting to the 10-yard line with as much prepared and as much ready for a executive pastor, a lead pastor, or somebody to say, hey, you've done your homework. You've got a job description. You've done research. You're bringing multiple solutions. Like, you're bringing solutions instead of the problem of, hey, I'm really busy. Can you help figure this out for me?
Yeah.
So when we do that, we earn the right and the trust to say, this person is leading something bigger than themselves. Yeah. They're ready. If we can do it, they're ready to bring somebody else on that team.
You know, I said this to a team member on our team just the other day. Oftentimes, the leader of an organization hasn't gone through the process you've gone through that says, okay, I feel like we need to hire somebody. And that wasn't the situation that was at hand, but they were presenting something that had a cost, a large financial cost. And I did not react in the healthiest way, to be completely honest. But I later, in sort of an apology, said, hey, I overreacted. And I used it as a coaching opportunity to say, hey, you're at point B and you have come to the conclusion, and they are an incredibly brilliant leader in our organization. You said we need to pay for X to solve this problem, and you got to B, but you've taken a week or so to go from point A to point B. You've invited me into the conversation, and I'm at point A. Next time we have this conversation, help me get from point A to point B before you say this is the path. And so I love what you're saying is, hey, I'm open to exploring the options, but this is where I think missionally, organizationally, we need to be at, and we can't hit that without something. So either I need to do less, either we need to reappropriate some resources in our organization, or we may need to add resources to the organization. Absolutely. And it doesn't put your boss or your leader in a place where they're only given one option. Yep. I mean, my whole team knows this. I hate one option. Well, we got one option. We don't have an option.
Yeah. Well, even let's play that out and get super practical, because these are not easy conversations. Yeah. And most likely, you were not the first person to bring a conversation to your leader saying, "Hey, I'd like to hire more people." Yeah. That person's probably feeling the weight of wanting to pay everybody more, or hire more people, or what, like,
or
they're
giving
feeling
has to
that
go up, or we're spending too much on the software.
So they may have less in their control than you think. But I think things that can help going into this, and where I've seen light bulbs go off in these conversations, is, hey, boss, I've done a time audit for the last month for me on how I'm spending my time. Yeah. And I'm spending this much time in this area, and this is critical, but it's not essential for me. Are we open to looking at this in a different way, or coach me and help me get more efficient? Yeah. Be part of the solution with me.
Audit can I not do anymore?
Correct. Yeah. You're bringing something objective to the conversation instead of an emotion saying, I'm busy, I'm overwhelmed. Practical things like that, even showing, especially for teams where they may not understand your role. And guess what? Like, you're right. They don't understand you and you don't understand their world. So help them understand by saying, hey, here's right now, here's what we're trying to do on social media every week. We're trying to do 10 posts because pastor wants it, or we're trying to make this many videos. We're trying to lead this many people. And here's how that's going. Just give them some objective, facts to help work through and manage. And you're going to be able to come up with better solutions together.
I love it. And you're helping them say, hey, here's this problem B.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know where we're headed, but I want to invite you into that process because you probably see things the way I don't see it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also a lot that you just sort of tapped into of understanding that, especially in creative and technical ministries, we're always wanting, we're always needing more. I'll never forget, I had a friend of mine who's an entrepreneur who said to me, every team member is going to come to you with a request to make their job easier, not necessarily to increase profitability, which in the business sense, that's the clear metric, right? But like, I want to maybe flip that and say, every time you go to your pastor, think about that. The pastor may think, well, they're always asking for more to make their job easier, not necessarily accomplish the mission better. And so if you can frame it in organizational mission talk, rather than my life would be easier talk, I hate to say it, and I don't want to sound cold. Most pastors aren't necessarily number one concern is your job be easier. They number one concern want to reach their community more effectively for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so if you can wrap it in that that's so good. So let's talk about if there's somebody listening here who's like, Phil, Luke, I love this. I have a healthy leader. Maybe I don't have a healthy leader. I don't know. But they're thinking about self and how do I increase my own leadership? You mentioned earlier, you got to be able to lead yourself well. You've written a book. It's a fantastic book, by the way. Rethink Communication. If you haven't gotten it, you need to go check it out. But you're a very process guy. You're a playbook guy. You're like, hey, here's the map that we're going to go through. Give us maybe a little map, maybe a couple resources. How can someone grow their own leadership skill? What is maybe something simple? All right. Like you could obviously go to leadership. You can get a coach. There's a lot of big things, but is there something simple, practical? It's like, hey, tomorrow, here's something you could do to increase your leadership ability.
Gosh, yeah, that might be a whole nother podcast because there's a lot to that. I think there's the thing where I've seen probably the most growth in unexpected ways in my own journey has been thinking about it in the concept of everything's a rep. So I just recently was talking in a coaching call, working with a young leader that's like, hey, I'm trying to grow as a leader. I'm just waiting for my shot. I'm like, you've got your shot when you're watching your leader lead you. You have a chance to actually say, hey, what helped encourage me in that moment that will help shape how I'm going to lead my next meeting someday? What discouraged me? What's something that left me thinking about this all day? Where do I feel misunderstood? Where did vision happen in a powerful, compelling way? You're getting a case study of organizational leadership every day you walk into the office, every Sunday. Everything's a rep. So when you think of everything like a rep, you should always be learning if you have the posture ready for it. So if you have the posture as a learner, God's going to put the right things in your path, and he's going to allow you to probably use this season to prepare you for the next one, whatever is coming. And a lot of people wait until that moment's arrived, and then they're like, okay, let me rush and download and make all the things happen. Well, you missed the reps over the last couple of years that could have prepared you to be more prepared for that exact moment. So I think that's a key. Obviously, there's tons of other things. There's books, there's resources, there's coaches, there's all that. Getting a mentor, getting somebody outside that's been there or that can help see your blind spots and help just be in your corner, that goes a long way. But I think the most underutilized and probably most important thing is thinking of everything as a rep and keep a journal that's going to shape the future version of you, and you're going to be better off because of it.
That's so good. I think just that spirit of becoming a student of leadership, watching leaders lead. I've thought personally, when I'm in an environment where I think I could lead better, I always catch myself because I'm like, well, everybody thinks that. Everybody thinks they could do that better.
They don't.
I want to take a second in those moments and go, how did that person lead in a way that I'm maybe not qualified yet? Like, where did they really crush it in a way that I need to grow, right? And so it's like flipping it. It's not just, oh, I could have done that better, right? A lot of people think that in meetings. Oh, I could have led that meeting a lot better than that person did. I want to challenge maybe the audience to say, But what did they lead well that you could grow in?
Mhm.
And where does that sort of champion us?
You don't get better at tennis by playing my 9-year-old who's never played tennis.
Yeah.
You get better by playing against people that are better at some aspect of their game than you.
Yeah.
And I think as leaders, we got to surround ourselves with other people that are better at something we're hungry to get better at.
Yeah.
Like that's it's going to grow you, and you probably have something you're better at than that person that they can learn from as well too.
I love it. All right. I think we have room for maybe one more question. And we just talked about the individual on how do they sort of level up their leadership. I want to talk about the leader for a second. I'm going to paint a picture that's essentially, what would you say to a leader who says, Phil, Luke, I need to get more out of my team, but I don't want to burn them out, right? Burnout's kind of this trigger word I feel like in the church sometimes of like, man, we're just going to ask too much and they're going to quit and I can't leverage. Yep. I'm just curious, what are you coaching teams on essentially increasing efficiencies or effectivenesses without pushing people beyond healthy boundaries? Yeah.
One of my favorite, it's simple, but usually simple gets you further than complex. One of my favorite things I work with leaders on is just saying, hey, if you're trying to take somebody somewhere, they're going to need more of something and less of something to get them where you want and need them to go. And burnout happens when our battery doesn't recharge, when we're at that point where we just feel like nothing we can do, no weekend off, no day off, it's going to get us back to ready to stay at it. So we got to be aware of that, but that's a separate issue because a lot of people that are saying they're burned out aren't burned out. Like it's not that they can't, it's they're overwhelmed and they can't lead themselves out of where they are. And so I think as leaders, we have to look at each person around us to help paint and cast a vision for where they can go and give them clarity to say, hey, for this week, here's what I need more of you. I need more of your ideas. I need more of your passion. I need more of fill in the blank. Hey, but I also need less of this. I don't need you to be stuck in the weeds on this. I want to let me take that off your plate, because for there to be more, I need less of this. Yeah. So when you give a leader that you're leading the gift of clarity, you're paving the way in front of them to be able to be a better version of themselves. Because we all need that for ourselves to see the blind spots of, hey, you're wasting too much time on this. I need you to move quicker, but I also need you to create some margin this way. Because most people, it's hard to see. It's hard to always see the details that we're overlooking or that we're spending too much time on when we're in the middle of it. Yeah. So we need leaders like that to help see what we don't see ourselves. And I think it's probably safe to assume that, a leader can ask those questions of their team. Yeah. Hey, what is it that I'm, can help clarify for you? Where are you feeling overwhelmed? What's too much? Well, it's a dangerous but powerful question when a leader can ask somebody that reports to them to say, hey, I want to see you succeed. I want to be a part of that. What do you need more of from me? What do you need less of from me? Yeah. That too, you might be the reason why that person's not getting as far as you want them to go. Yeah. So it takes humility on that. But if you invite a relationship where the people you're leading can know they can have those kind of conversations with you, that's good self-awareness and that's good leadership. And it's going to make you and that team a better team. Always gold when you're here, dude. I love it. Always a pleasure. I love your heart. I love your approach towards ministry, and I love your desire to help grow our community and just the community at large. So thank you for being here. This is a special community. If people want to connect with you, I know that there's someone here that's like, I gotta call this guy. This guy's gonna totally change our organization. How can they connect best? You can email me, phil@philbowdle.com, Bowdle. You can text me, 678-653-2047. Just search my name. You can website's philbowdle.com, but more than anything, in any way I can have your back is always my heart. I love, there's so many leaders that are doing the right thing, trying to do the right thing, but struggling. So anything I can do to have creatives back in this community, I'm all for it. So I love it. Thanks. It's the first cell phone that I think's ever been given out on the podcast. So that's exciting. Come on. I actually answer most of the texts that I get from the book, because I put it in the back of my book. Are you actually going to answer this at some level of like, are you actually there? So I really do love it. Phil, thanks for being here, man. Pleasure. Thanks, Luke.
Awesome. Super, super great stuff coming from Phil about church leadership and culture. I would encourage you to maybe go back and listen to it and take some notes and think about what are some things that you can apply in your life and ministry from that discussion. I know that's what I'm going to be doing. That's what I was doing when I was editing it. So super great. We're going to hop into a pastoral moment, which kind of has been the theme for this episode, is very pastoral. But before we do that, I want to let you know we are SALT. So if you don't know that, the Monochrome Podcast is put on. We're the SALT team, and we do a lot of things. We do webinars, we do podcasts, we do lives on Instagram and all that kind of good stuff. But our big event, SALT Conference, is happening in Dallas this year. And in just 9 days from when this podcast is first airing, so depending on when you listen to this, June 20th of 2024, there's going to be a price increase. So price increases happen periodically as we get closer to conference. And so we are letting you know because we want you to be able to stretch your church budget a little bit farther, especially if you're already planning on coming. Go ahead, pull the trigger, save that money, and get plugged in. That gets you in the groove early, and you already know you're coming and you're locked in. We've had a group before that didn't buy their tickets until like it was too late, right? Is that the story? They had bought travel.
Hotel. Yep.
Yeah. And then they were like, we closed registration because we sold out. And they're like, wait, we didn't buy our tickets. And we were like, what? Why would you do that? Now we figured out a way to get them tickets.
Literally out of seats.
Yeah. We were like, we had to kick some people out. No, we didn't do that. But so don't wait, get your tickets, save some money. And we're super excited to have you guys. It's super powerful. If you don't know anything about it, go to salt2024.com and you can learn a little bit more. But it's basically what we do on this podcast times like a million. So it's pretty cool. So anyway, pastoral moment with Keith. Keith, what do you got for us?
All right, well, let's get pastoral. So Luke chapter 18:1, this is what Luke records. He says, and he told them a parable to the effect that they ought to always pray and not lose heart. Now, what I want to build off of this is the power of telling stories. If you are like me, you dread Sunday morning small talk. Sometimes the most uncomfortable time in church is when the pastor says, hey, everyone, turn to somebody next to you and tell them good morning and make lunch plans or whatever the joke is the pastor throws out.
The pastor's commanded you to make lunch plans.
He usually ends the time by saying, I didn't tell you to make lunch plans. But that's kind of that awkward moment where you feel the necessity to talk to people, to relate to people, but you know that it's like we're doing this because we have to, and we're societally obligated in this moment to say hi and whatever, and you know that the conversation's really not going to get anywhere. What I want to encourage you to do from this story is the reason that Jesus tells this parable is to increase their dependency upon the Lord in their faith and going to Him in prayer, and that they will not lose heart, that they will have faith in trying times. And I want you just to consider the fact that on your team, whatever team you lead, that there are people that are going through a season right now that you just are not privileged to. You don't understand what is going on in their life, what kind of challenges they have. Maybe it's not even a challenging time. Maybe it's a great time of great blessing. And what I want to encourage you to do is not just have small talk, not just have shop talk. Those things can be important and they serve a purpose in their place. But when we come together as the body of Christ, we are there to equip, to lift up, to encourage one another, and we really need one another. And so I want to encourage you to be so bold to share the stories that God is doing in your life. And maybe it's stories that God has done in your life. To encourage those around you, to have better, meaningful conversations that remind you that it's not just about the project or the process, but it's ultimately about the people. And so I think by doing so, what we will find is greater buy-in with our teams, greater understanding and patience, and ultimately the fellowship of Christ in that moment will be so much increased when you realize that my audio manager or production manager, whoever it is that we answer to, that they genuinely care enough about us to know, hey, how is your home life? How is your spiritual life? How have you seen God working and acting in your life recently? And I think that if we do this, if we practice this and put this in action, what we are going to have is just very tight bound teams. The cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. When we all come together and we care for one another and we have those meaningful, real God relationships, those godly conversations, we will see everything improve. And the greatest thing that will improve is the spiritual life of those that God has put around you. So don't hold God's stories to yourself. Share them, that they may be an encouragement and that they honestly just might be a link in the chain to tie you and another person together, that you have that commonality that you both serve Jesus Christ. And we're here today not just to put on a show, not that it is a show, or not just to put on a program, but we are here to serve him and his body, and we do it together.
Keith just dropped a challenge for all the introverts, for sure. All those of us who like being
and I am one.
Yes. Yep. So the creative challenge this week is something that hopefully stretches you just a tad, but not too much, but that you will actually try and practice this exercise in this challenge. A few years back, 56 people took part in a study where part of the group did not change their usual environment, and they took a test to measure their creativity. The other percent of the group, the other half of the group, spent 4 days outside in nature, hiking, walking, and then took a creativity test. I'm sure it's no surprise to find out that everyone who was outside scored better. But they didn't just score a little bit better, they scored 50% better on creativity than the group that stayed indoors and at their offices. So my challenge to you is to find at least 2 ways every day you can spend more time outside. Think about eating lunch outside, maybe going and sitting on the hood of your car, or if you have like a little patio area, taking a 20-minute walk in the afternoons or after your lunch break around your church parking lot, or maybe doing your staff meeting outside picnic style. Just find a way to be outside more than you already are during the day. And the real test here is to take the same creativity test that this study group took. It's going to be in our show notes as a link. It's called datcreativity.com. But basically, take this test before you start the challenge, and then take the test after a week of spending more time outside during your day, and see if the creativity score goes up.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the scores are. Yeah. Of
course, we'd love for you to maybe screenshot this or take some pictures when you're outside trying this challenge out, and hashtag #SaltCreativeChallenge so that we know you're trying it out at the same time our team is, and we can encourage each other that way.
I love this challenge. There's a lot of pollen where I live, and we have like a back patio, and we find like you have to like pressure wash it basically to get it all off. And so, but we did that recently. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to go sit out on the patio and like do some work and stuff. But that's a great challenge to go do that, because sometimes I forget and I will eat lunch at my desk. But yeah, I definitely need to get out more. So go do that. Definitely post it. That is episode 15. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I want to let you know, so we have been saying that we're doing 16 episodes this season, and we have been so blessed with incredible talent and speakers that we're actually doing 17. So
bonus.
next week's episode is not actually the season finale. We're doing an encore episode 17 with a really special guest. You're not going to want to miss that. So join us next week, and then make sure to join us the week after. And if you have enjoyed the podcast so far, a 5-star review goes a long way for us. Super helpful, and helps us figure out what we're going to do for season 2 next year. So thanks so much, guys. And as always, we will see you next week.